Lots of them have opposed the Prime Minister's deal because they fear being trapped in the backstop, the insurance policy to prevent a hard border in Ireland. And you want alternative arrangements to be put in place, Sir Graham, but you say we don't have to work out what they are.
Well, I think the most helpful thing at the moment is to recognise that when the withdrawal agreement was defeated by that massive majority 2 weeks ago, that didn't necessarily indicate that the agreement is dead. It just said there was a very fundamental problem which existed in it as it was, which could be rectified. And that is the problem that the backstop arrangement is one which could, if we enter into it, we could find ourselves trapped in it in perpetuity. And I think it would have been irresponsible to agree to that and find ourselves potentially locked into something we can never change.
Sure, but this has been objections have been made for some time, haven't it? And you will have heard the Irish government making very clear that they're not going to countenance any change to
Well, we're coming towards an end point. We're coming towards the exit date on the 29th of March. I think that is focusing minds. I think we've already seen across the European Union a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more creativity creeping in. Now, we all have to understand, of course, the Irish have their own domestic politics, just as we do. And the Taoiseach also has got a minority administration.
But it depends what that flexibility actually means, doesn't it? And Boris Johnson writes today in the Telegraph about the need for a freedom clause. He says the treaty needs to be changed. Otherwise, it would be a smoke and mirrors job.
Well, I think where I agree with Boris is that it has got to be legally binding. I don't think anybody's going to accept something which is just warm words.
But that's been ruled out as well by Jean-Claude Juncker, head of the Commission. He says, this is what he said publicly, there will be no legally binding new obligations imposed on the European Union. That's crystal clear.
Well, these wouldn't necessarily be new obligations imposed on the European Union. You could do it either through a bilateral agreement between the British...
ruled out by the Irish government.
Everything at some point in this process has been ruled out. What we've got to move on to now, if we're going to have a constructive, sensible progression, is people actually trying to resolve the issue. And the purpose of my amendment is to say to people, if you really want now to have some progress, you want to unlock deadlock, you want to bring people together and have a little bit of unity, and I think the country is crying out for that.
Well, that's the case you're making.
Then this is an opportunity.
Are you getting government support for this?
Well, I hope so.
You must know so.
Well, no, I don't know so. The amendment was born out of a number of conversations I had with colleagues, including members of the government, including the Prime Minister. I'd also spoken to people in the DUP too, and I'm hoping that the way in which the amendment is crafted can attract that very broad support. And if we can win the vote on my amendment, then I think it gives the Prime Minister enormous firepower when she goes back.
If you don't, is the deal truly dead?
Well, I think that would be a very unhelpful outcome. I think if my amendment is carried, she goes back to Brussels and says to them, you wanted to know what we can get through the House of Commons. This is it.
Sir Graham Brady.